Welcome to the CFB Dynasty Podcast with hosts Matt Knowles, Brian McElfresh, and Doug Gravely.
Hey everybody, how you doing out there in college fantasy football land? The regular season is over. The postseason is starting. Some people are excited about the postseason. Other people are crushed that their season is over. B-Mac, Doug, are you ready for this Week 10 into Week 11 show? How are you feeling heading into the college fantasy postseason?
Well, for me,
go ahead, Doug. You got it.
I am feeling no stress because I didn't make it. Man, it's bittersweet. I feel like we just stinking started.
I know.
So it's kind of. I was thinking about that yesterday. I'm not in the playoffs and in our league or whatever, but gosh, I feel like the season just started.
Same. It's college football season goes so fast. So that part is always the bitter part of it. Just love this time of year. If your team's in contention, especially, which my favorite team, the Gators, is not in contention. So it's more like keep an eye on that top 5 recruiting class and make sure that stays together, hopefully, where maybe Florida can pull an upset and make a bowl. That's really the tops there. But as far as fantasy goes, I'm going against a guy in division who I'm 0-2 against in the home league, Josh Reed. And he's got a really good team. From the jump, he had a great team. And we'll see how it goes. I've battled injuries and for the most part disappointment. In our Slack channel earlier this week, I was like telling everybody how much I dominated them in the RB 75 to 100 range with guys like Will Shipley and Marquez Cooper, who was projected to have a really good year, Singleton, and a few others that have just straight up disappointed as you look back on the regular season.
Yeah, and it's crazy to think. You look at the analytics before the season starts. You follow the numbers, you follow the trends, and there's guys that just for whatever reason just didn't perform. Singleton is a perfect example. It's like, why did Singleton go the opposite direction this year? We'll never know. But that doesn't mean he's still not a good pro prospect. But from a college fantasy perspective, if you have him on your roster, he probably helped you to not make the playoffs.
That's right. That's right. There's a cool post by Sleeper who has like their own NFL fantasy platform, and they were like, of teams that are winless, here are players that are commonly on those rosters. Now that was a really cool thing, and I think your point about Singleton is probably right. You probably spent 3rd, 4th round pick on him, and just has not had outside of maybe one game of a good performance this year. Just disappointment. And you see Allen doing okay. It's not like it's all on the O-line, but it's certainly not as good as last year.
And on the other side of it too, man, it makes you scared for every kid really that transfers. So not even just wasted draft picks, but for me personally, Isaiah Nair, great at Wyoming, got 1.9 fantasy points this year. Elijah Spencer, great before he transferred, went to Minnesota, and he's got stinking 12.
Sakari.
Look at
all these transfers. It just makes it so scary to even want to keep them sometimes.
It just makes it more difficult to rank. And then this is new to us, so we will learn more, and there will be more of a risk factor. And that's one of the things I want to maybe take a note on this if you guys want, because it's something that I've thought about, but I haven't written down yet. But adding that in there, what's the level of risk in taking this player? You've got stability, you assume, in a Quinshawn Judkins, who was our RB1 going into the season. And while he had a slower start and not been as good as last year, he's still been consistent. He's the bona fide starter. And his risk factor would have been really, really low going into this year, just like a Caleb Williams or a Marvin Harrison. But then you have other people, whether they're coming back from injury or they're transferred, like Marquez Cooper from Kent to Ball State. And although things looked good there, he was replacing a 1,500 yard, 15 touchdown type of running back there, and Steele just didn't produce, didn't have it this year. And he's, down on touchdowns. He's getting like
something to look at, man, for sure.
Yeah.
With
look at
because with the transfer portal too, you've got, I think, offensive linemen from Ball State left. That's just a huge play, and then just their offense looked pretty rough from the beginning. They had their first 4 games were tough games. So, he goes to a small school like that, and it's like, man, I can't even use him really for the first 4 games of the season because his matchups are so crazy. So, yeah, it's something that, man, I kind of love this kind of time of year too for us, because we can look back on these things and be like, all right, we can do better with this. We can focus on this a little more. So this is kind of the exciting stuff for me, where I'm like, all right, where did we kind of poop the bed, for lack of a better term, and where can we make it a little bit better for our peeps? So.
One of the things that's top of mind is it's going back to the trends of the 90s, where it was the junior quarterback that sat and kind of took over and was able to keep the offense rolling because they've been in the system for a longer time. And they know, they're putting more on the quarterbacks. It's not the RPO game of, 3-4 to the last decade or so that dominated, which was very easy for a high school quarterback who played in an RPO system to come into college and read the D end. Now they're putting in all kinds of checks and different things. And you're seeing a Jackson Dart take off in his second year in the system as a veteran player who's been in college for 3 to 4 years now. So that's going to be more of the trend, I think, on the quarterback rankings, going into this year. We will certainly favor more than the system. How long has that quarterback been in that system specifically?
Right.
So even like a Sam Hartman, who has a ton of experience, he went in with a bunch of young receivers into a new system, and it's not, clicked like we thought it would. And we thought he was kind of going to be able to go in and take over. And then you look at Ohio State, you look at the receivers there at whoever won that job, Kyle McCord in this case, and you think, oh, no way he's not at least a top 10, top 12, top 15 fantasy guy. Well, he hasn't been. And but maybe next year he will be, with a year of experience and all that stuff. So that's something that we're going to have to look at, reevaluate as we go into 2024 rankings, which would be really exciting. We'll do that over Christmas break for sure.
Sounds good to me. Since we're kind of talking about it, let's just kind of get it out of the way when it comes to the open review and the home review. Just make them real quick. Congrats to Scared Money Don't Make Money, J.H. Petkoff, who now is my rival for knocking me out of the playoffs with that midnight freaking overtime touchdown. M. Brooks 24-23. Captain Cal, Joe Slowakowski, Oaktown, and Saucy Dossie for clinching the first 6 ever playoff spots in the history of the CFP Open League. And then no thanks goes out to Carissa because she had a nice little mini run. She got off the bottom of the standings, but then she settled back in and clinched the worst record in the league, 3-17. And I got a gripe here. There's 24 teams in the league. You play 20 of them. How is it both of you guys got to play Carissa and I did not? I might be in the playoffs right now if I played Carissa. I feel like there's some shenanigans at foot here. Come on, fellas.
Hey, listen. I don't know, but I appreciate you putting her on my schedule.
All right, then in our home league, where it all started, congrats to Mike Davis, Gordy Miller, Mike Dillingham, and Josh Speed Reed. for joining BMAC and myself in this year's playoffs. Doug, at least Doug's not going to come in second this year in the league. You know what I'm saying? So there's at least that little bit of a bright side. But I can tell you right now, the playoffs this year are stacked. I know BMAC is not thrilled with his team heading into the playoffs, but I think that it's going to be a playoffs for the ages, because I think every single one of those teams has the capability of having some big weeks and taking it all the way to the championship.
Yeah, my running back instability or just underperformance this year, man, I was excited about running backs, and I had 5, so I could only draft 2. And man, they just haven't performed. But I will say, I planned everything around the playoffs, the fantasy playoffs. So like as I draft the team, I'm looking at what's their week 11, 12, 13 matchups like, making sure obviously they don't have a bye, and doing my best job going into the draft and every pickup that I make to make sure their schedule is good this time of year. So I have great matchups across the board. We'll see if my players can perform against Josh Reed and his ballers this week. But it's going to be a fun one. It's definitely a stacked playoff. Anybody can win it.
Yeah, the thing I'm most worried about is having a healthy quarterback. I've had every single one of my quarterbacks has either been injured, out for the year, or they play behind an offensive line that doesn't exist. Shedeur Sanders. I don't know how many of you guys remember back in the day when David Carr played for the Houston Texans, and there'd be commercials where they would make fun of how bad the Houston Texans offensive line was, and it would be like just a center and David Carr. You'd have the entire defense just piling in on him. That's how every Colorado game feels. Like I can't believe the amount of absolute destruction that is leveled on Shedeur Sanders every week. When you see his numbers, it's like 18 quarterback hits and 7 or 8 sacks. The guy's just getting blasted. I would love to be able to see how he plays when he has even like 2 seconds of protection. The protection just completely disappears in 2 seconds. He's running for his life and just getting the snot knocked out of him. So going into the playoffs with Shedeur Sanders, I'm just hoping he can make it through the whole game.
Yeah, and they're playing Arizona, who's kind of been on a tear, man.
Yeah.
They've been a surprise team. So
yeah,
that's going to be tough, bro, because Arizona has surprised me for sure with some of the teams they've beaten, especially losing their quarterback. I mean, and their backup quarterback coming in, Fifta, I think his name is, or Fafita or something like that. But yeah, I mean, they've been on a tear, so that could be a tough matchup. Because I looked at all the playoff stuff, and all your quarterbacks with red flags and stuff was kind of crazy to me. But
it's disgusting. It's disgusting. I went into the playoffs many years ago against BMAC, and the only quarterback I had healthy for the game was a quarterback for FAU that was middle of the road. I'm like, man, I'm going into the semifinals with probably, if the CFP Dynasty was doing rankings at that time, probably a QB 50 trying to win a game against BMAC. And I kind of feel that way this week, even though I've got some top level guys, they're just all hurt. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. So, Doug, speaking of Matt's lineup here, let's take a look at one of the decisions. Like, this is normally what we'll do on Saturday, but we take start sit questions all the time. But would you go with Frank Harris playing against Rice? They're 104th in the country,
and Rice's starting quarterback is out.
Or would you go with who you've started all year long? Clearly the tougher matchup, Shedeur Sanders. So if you look at the stats, UTSA is projected to put up 36 points. And then let's see, Colorado is projected to put up 22. What do you think?
I mean, you already know what I think, especially bringing up the Arizona matchup. I would probably roll with Frank and his 19 years of experience. But I mean, man, it's tough. We've talked about this too, be like, do you roll with some of the decisions that got you where you're at? You know what I mean?
Right.
Or do
Josiah texted me this last night before the Ball State game. He was like, Marquez Cooper and, the run defense that he was going up against was 97th in the country. Or do you roll with Judkins, who's playing at Georgia? and
that's tough.
I said Judkins, but
I would have rolled Judkins because of what I've seen from Judkins compared to Cooper this year.
Yeah. And Georgia's been run on. They're not as good defense. They're really great defensively. Don't get me wrong. They're not as good as they were last year, where you're just unstartable.
Yeah, so, the biggest problem for me, and it's really tough. I try to take two things into consideration: is when the game is all said and done, if you come out on the losing side, which decision is going to make it? There is going to be something you're going to be able to live with when you go forward. If I leave Shedeur Sanders in, and I lose, and I would have won if I put Frank Harris in. I don't think I've even started Frank Harris but one game this year. If I go the other way around and Frank Harris, craps the bed and Shedeur has a better game than he's had for the last couple of weeks, and I would have won if I would have had Shedeur in the lineup, then I'm like, did I overthink it? And what could have happened? What would have happened if I would have just left him in? That doesn't mean I don't make that move, but I always do factor that in. Like you said, go with the guys that got you there. But that is a tough decision because the last 2 weeks, Shedeur has been absolutely terrible.
Yeah.
And it's not because Shedeur has been terrible. It's because you can tell he just has that I'm running for my life every single time he's playing hurt. He's limping around on the field. So that is definitely a decision I'm not completely sure of heading into Saturday. It's probably a last-minute decision there.
I think another thing to think about too, Matt, for this game for you, and I'm kind of on your side here. Don't tell the person you're playing. But the other thing to think about is Colorado just switched who calls the offensive plays too. And it looked rough last week.
Yes, it did.
So,
terrible.
It's just another thing to think about when you're making that decision. I'm trying not to put too much in your brain, but
no. I agree. You got to analyze the different decisions that are out there. It's tough. I've got some decisions to make at wide receiver as well. So I've got Pafeli Ashlock on the bench right now just because he's playing Air Force, and Air Force coming in has been normally pretty good, but then Air Force was absolute garbage last week. So you never know.
Yeah. And these are the decisions, if you do a bad job, it's the last time you have to make these decisions.
And it's so nice, the fact that I don't have to make these decisions this week.
Sit back and watch the rest of us suffer.
That's right.
Guys, in case you're wondering, I didn't completely crap the bed. I did have a winning record, so just didn't make the playoffs.
Oh yeah, and Doug was tied for. I guess he was close. I guess you weren't tied. It came down to tell him what it came down to. BMAC and Doug played in week 9, and tell him how that game was decided. This was the difference between BMAC making the playoffs or Doug.
So BMAC had his kicker for Arizona. I had Cowing. 999,000 people out of 1 million would have said Doug's going to win this game with Cowing being left and BMAC having the kicker. But the kicker outperformed Cowing, and Brian beat me by 4 points, which it is what it is. It's fine, whatever. At least it's not like
credit on his name. Loop got me into the playoff.
I wasn't going to loop nobody into this conversation. But it's better than losing a championship by less than a point. And at the end of the day, man, I can't complain with how my team did. Like I said, they scored over 200 points the last week of the season. It was a good team, but like most teams, overcoming injuries and weird transfer stuff was just tough. So
yeah, speaking about that weird losing by a hair of a fraction of a point. Remember we talked about for a couple of weeks we had that weird situation with my game with BMAC where BMAC won. Then on Wednesday they did a stat correction and had me win. Mm-hmm. Then a week later they did the stat correction again and they gave BMAC back the game. That was the difference between me making the playoffs or not making the playoffs in the open league. That's how close it was. That's how close it was.
Oh no.
Man, I'm so glad I didn't have to worry about this type of stuff this year. While we're talking about fantasy stuff, I'm gonna push things along because there was some super surprising performances this week. So I'm gonna hit some really quick standout performances that probably helped people get into the playoffs, or having one of these guys on this list and still can help me make it kind of sucks, but it's fine. So the top standout performances, man, Jordan McLeod, who I did pick up in the open league that I did not start. I started JJ McCarthy. Had 60 fantasy points last week. Then you had Jacob Zeno, 59. And how about Tennessee's defense with 58 points? I had the pleasure of playing against them this week.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
I think 3 defensive touchdowns and it was insane. Byron Brown, 56. LeJontay Wester played against him too, 56. But I had Bo Nix, who got 56. And then Dylan Johnson at Washington. This one surprised me, y'all, because they've been so pass happy and efficient. Dylan Johnson with 54 points this past week. It was the Dylan Johnson show in that Washington game.
That's the one that stabs me in the freaking throat right there, because Dylan Johnson with 54. Give Michael Penix Jr. one of those touchdowns, I'm in the CFB Open playoffs. I was just like, come on. There's just everything that could have possibly gone against me, even though my game was close. Dylan Johnson just kept on putting that ball in the end zone, being the touchdown vulture. 54 points, just crushed me. Crushed me.
He had never had more than 100 yards in a game in his career. And against USC goes for 256 and 4 touchdowns.
Yeah,
I mean,
I felt every single one of them.
That guy, I tell you what. But yeah, man,
I felt every single one of them. I cursed his name every time he went in the end zone because I was taking points away from Penix. I'm like, Penix, just throw him the screen.
That's better than punching a windshield. I can tell you from losing in college fantasy. It hurts way less.
Sure it does.
Oh man.
But yeah, I mean, I just wanted to point those out because there's some crazy stats with like Tennessee's defense getting 58. That doesn't happen. I mean, that's super rare to get almost 60 points from your defense. That's insane.
Dude, this is where the memories are, though. Like, right at the playoffs and then in the fantasy playoffs, these are some of the things that you remember. And I definitely have some scar tissue from old times.
BMAC talking about punching the windshield. That was literally like a decade ago, everybody. This is not something that happened last week. This is one of those BMAC remembers where he was 10 years ago when he punched the windshield for losing the championship. That's what we all get to go through.
At least now he just sits next to a trash can.
Don't call yourself a trash can, Doug. Don't call yourself a trash can, Doug. You're a good guy. You're a nice guy, Doug.
All right, buddy.
To make matters worse, I was so like reception and Wi-Fi in a stadium now is pretty good. So this was like where you could not receive a text or anything inside a stadium. So I was in the swamp watching Florida lose in terrible fashion to rival Florida State. College Game Day. This is back when they did the live show in the morning, and then they kept the set there and did the live show after the game was over too, at night. And they were out there, and I was hearing, all the Seminoles doing their thing, whatever. And then I get to my car, refresh my phone, and Danny's tight end caught a meaningless touchdown, long one, to win the game. And I just had no other reaction than punching the windshield. And
it's crazy that you guys were both at the Florida State game. Danny being a Florida State fan, you being a Florida fan.
I don't think I was with him. I wasn't with him.
Oh, no?
No.
Oh, okay.
That would have been
I don't think no. I don't think that Brian and Danny would go to that game together. There'd be fisticuffs no matter what.
Fisticuffs. Oh, shoot, man. Yeah, that's crazy. It's kind of like you losing to your rival Gordy when his quarterback posted -3 points last year.
What I can't wait for 2024 is having these conversations and bringing the same passion to losing in the video game. We had so many battles on the NCAA 12, 13, 14 when they launched online Dynasty. Oh my gosh, so much stuff. And we'll be running some of our own leagues. That's going to be a blast too.
Yeah, man.
So why don't we move right along and get to the news and notes for this week. There's a couple of really interesting news and notes. One in here that is going to, I'll take the one, exactly the one, because it's going to spawn a whole different conversation once we get there. But take it away, Doug.
News and notes around college football.
All right, y'all. So everybody that's in the playoffs in fantasy, pay attention to this. Brian, Matt, not Doug, but you guys and everybody that's listening, pay attention to these notes because there's some big ones in here. So Jaden Daniels, quarterback for LSU, has not practiced this week and is considered day-to-day. I don't know if you guys saw that hit, but he got whacked.
Yeah,
and I'm not sure – a lot of these coaches are kind of hit and miss with what info they're giving, but I can honestly tell you I would not be surprised if he does not play this weekend.
Well, that would give Florida an ounce of a chance, but it's a night game in Baton Rouge. They're so good. That would make Nussmeier, as bad as Florida's defense has been, that would make Nussmeier, if he does get to start, a DFS play for sure.
For sure. And then you got Luther Burden, wide receiver for Missouri, questionable this week. And I watched a little bit of that game, and he was, again, Luther Burden and played insanely.
He's my Devy wide receiver one. When Harrison's gone, Dunze's gone, he'll be my wide receiver one on our Devy rankings. He's so good.
Then you got Caleb Johnson, running back from Iowa. May not be the running back number one in Iowa any longer. Apparently, multiple running backs have been practicing with the ones this week, and the coach said whichever one practices the best is playing. So, B, I'll let you take a couple so we can switch it up since there's quite a few.
Yes, yeah. So let's go here. Bucky Irving, not been practicing, unspecified reasons. JT Daniels is doubtful for Rice, and Rice is going to get that beat down from UTSA either way. Dante Moore, Ethan Garbers both return to practice. MJ Morris, your boy.
Yep. So let's talk about this one, because this one there's a very interesting storyline behind the MJ Morris situation. So NC State started Brennan Armstrong at the beginning of the season, and they said they were trying to redshirt MJ Morris for the entire season. Brennan Armstrong really struggled. They said they were going to potentially burn the red shirt for MJ Morris, have him come in and play. MJ Morris hasn't had a great season, but he did spark the team. The team just came off of wins versus Clemson and Miami. On Monday, in the press conference, Dave Doran is talking about how MJ Morris has improved and the game plan and all this kind of stuff. Then yesterday, news comes out that MJ Morris is making the unilateral decision to redshirt himself for the rest of the year, uninjured, and not transferring out of the program because he's already played his 4 games. So he doesn't want to burn that shirt. He wants to have another year eligibility. And if you were a college football coach, Brian, Doug, and your guy that's led you to a 3-1 record, made you bowl eligible, just says, you know what, coach, I don't think I'm going to play the rest of the year, even though I'm your starter. And it's like, surprise, you're not going to play. How are you going to feel about that guy going forward?
It's so weird. And it's a broken system to kind of have that as an option, man. That does suck. So I don't know. I don't know how I'd handle it. I don't think I'd handle it well.
I don't see, and that's the thing is, it's so different for us. I think I don't know if I'd handle it very good, but at the end of the day, too, you think about it long term, and you're like, okay, I got this guy for an extra year then. Like, our season at this point is basically over. We're playing for a bowl game at some point in December at this point. So that wasn't their goal. Their goal was not to be in a December bowl game. So why not save this kid and have an extra year with him? And potentially, who knows, he could go out. We've seen it happen before. first play of next game and tear an ACL. Why at that point risk it? Because your season at this point, when you go into a year, you're not playing for a December bowl game. That's not what your goal is. So yeah,
some teams it is.
I just my big thing though in this is it sounds like there was no conversation between the quarterback and the coach before this happened. If there was, there's no way that the coach is going to be in a press conference on Monday talking about where his quarterback is. To me, if you're the coach, this kid just completely embarrassed you on national television because you said one thing the one day and the next day he shows he's got more power than you by making that decision. So I'm not saying I'm not an MJ Morris fan. I do agree that MJ Morris needs more time to improve his skills, but I just feel like this situation could have gone a lot differently, especially considering that they have come out and said that he intends on staying in the program. That to me is the most baffling thing. It just blows my mind. I don't want to belabor the point, but that was one of the craziest things that I think I've seen when it comes to the red shirt, that I'm going to red shirt. I'll play 4 games and I'm going to decide on my own to red shirt and come back and be your starter next year, coach.
Man, all the people that just are dying for NC State fantasy updates, we have got it covered. That's awesome.
Yeah, we do. Man, I love the subtle knocks. These are great.
That's not a knock. No, that's good. Like that stuff is like affects all of college football, and with the playoff coming, man, there's going to be a lot of unintended consequences that are going to face fantasy owners and just college football fans in general. Yeah, I hate to see that kind of stuff.
I will go ahead and crush these ones real quick. And if you guys got anything to say, don't add in for sure. Allie Jennings, who hasn't played in forever, receiver for Virginia Tech, unlikely to return at all this season. It's a big one because he was one of those transfer guys that he's one of those transfer guys that we were like, okay, he could have a really good coming out party at Virginia Tech. So Johnny Wilson, Florida State, he's back at practice. And a guy that, BMAC has, Antonio Williams, receiver for Clemson, out until at least a bowl game.
I don't have him, but I have the next one.
That was Antonio Williams was a high draft pick of mine in the Open League. Right. Yeah, he hurt me.
Yeah. And then you got Will Shipley, running back for Clemson. Game time decision, but he is trending towards playing. Then you got Jamari Thrash, receiver for Louisville. No update. Just, winging it. So
red flag, no update.
I will keep you guys posted as the weeks progress on this because it is an important fantasy week for a lot of people. Yeah. So keep an eye on the Discord. I will post as much as I can about these injury things, especially these no update people. It's awesome to know.
He's someone I think I'm playing. I know Josh Reed's got him on the bench right now, but he's someone I could play against. And it's a Thursday night game, so there's not a lot of time for news.
And then Jalen McMillan, receiver for Washington, he's getting a second opinion on that lingering knee injury from another doctor. So it sounds like he could potentially be shut down the rest of the year. And then you've got Tyler Van Dyke, quarterback for Miami, may no longer be the starter. Possibility.
That doesn't surprise me after last week. He was terrible.
And then you got Reggie Love, running back for Illinois, the broken Illinois running back room. He's a full go now. Braylon Allen, another one, running back for Wisconsin. No update. So we're just winging it. I will keep you posted on that one too. Then you got Quinn Ewers, which could potentially lead to a huge BMAC decision in his playoff game.
The decision's been made.
It has been made. That's true. He's begun throwing, and he's considered day-to-day. So
here's what we're dealing with. Texas. Like Xavier Worthy owners, here's what we're dealing with. With Ewers gone. 14 targets to Ewers, 5 catches.
And over 3 games, right?
Well, this was just last week. This was last week.
Yeah.
14 targets, 5 receptions, and then the week before, 10 targets, 4 receptions.
14 targets.
Would love to see Ewers back in action here.
Oh man, that's a lot of targets with not a lot of catches. Somebody that's been a great I know for DFS lineups for Matt, especially Joseph Manjack, receiver for Houston.
Yeah.
He's back after missing 2 weeks with a concussion. He's been great for some DFS lineups because he's always been kind of a cheap option,
Yep.
which we'll talk about that on Saturdays. But Brock Bowers, guys, Brock Bowers started running at practice, but he's doubtful this week.
Yeah.
But he is running again. So BMAC, if you make it through week 1 of the playoffs, maybe you can see your boy.
Yeah.
Matthew Golden, another receiver at Houston, is day-to-day. Grayson McCall from Coastal Carolina is doubtful. Cam Camper, receiver from Indiana, who's had a pretty solid season. He's done for the year. Jawar Jordan, running back from Louisville, should play, but potentially could be limited. And then DeCorian Clark, one of our favorite receivers to talk about before the year, not expected to play at all the rest of the year. So I don't know what's going to happen there. And then one of my favorite news that has come out, I think it was Monday.
Big one.
Eric McAllister, wide receiver from Boise. He's transferring. Guys, this is after season's not even over. He's got 47 receptions, 873 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Why would you
leading the team?
Leading the team, like out of the middle of nowhere. No,
I think probably because Boise is in jeopardy of not even making a bowl this year. They're having a really rough season, so they might not even make a bowl. And he might be like, I need to go find greener pastures. I don't think I agree with this move on his part. I know they got a lot of young receivers at Boise, but yeah, that seems pretty unbelievable that he's just dropping the team right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'd at least finish out the season. Like, goodness, you could potentially be a 1,000-yard receiver on your resume, trying to transfer to a team that looks really good to a team trying to pick up a receiver. But I don't know. I mean, that's just weird. Kind of like I said, in the middle, not even the middle of the year, but toward the end of the season, just being like, all right, I'm going to go somewhere else.
Got a question popped up on the screen that'll kind of get us right into rankings talk here. Out of Rhythm Fantasy Sports. Hey, boys, it's been a while. I need some tight end help. Which
Don't we
rough.
all?
Everybody needs.
I drafted tight end so bad this year. Oh.
Well, I mean, there's 2 that have hit the 100-point mark. That's it. 2. One of them is Bowers and hasn't played in weeks, and the other one's Dallin Holker. So those 2 are gone. The one that I love, is near here in Ocala, over in Gainesville, Arliss Boardingham. I love his potential. LSU sucks in the passing game. He had not the best 2 games, so he might be available. He went, it was 0, of course, on the bye week, then 1.9 against Georgia and 6.9 last week. He's going to get some targets. He is likely to score this week against LSU. I would say he's averaging just under 7 fantasy points on the season, but I think he'll be a feature this week against a porous LSU defense, even though that game is on the road. I don't know if Boardingham's available in your league, but I like him there. Does anyone have any others that they want to call out here?
I think a guy. This is a guy I actually have starting in my DFS lineup this week, starting in the playoffs as well. Colston Loveland from Michigan.
Yep.
If you look at his last few games, he either gets targets or he gets touchdowns. He gets one of the 2, but his last 4 games are 9.9 points, 18, 23.9, 7.5. And the way that touchdown, scoring has been for tight ends this year, that's the kind of guy that might be better than the options that you already have out there. So he's another one that you could consider if he's available.
Yeah. Tanner McLaughlin is another one for Arizona.
Tanner McLaughlin for sure.
Going up against Colorado. He's had 5 and 9 points the last 2 weeks, but Colorado loves giving up points, especially through the air. So I like that one.
Another one that I like is Justin Jolly from UConn.
Yep.
Seems to be the guy that they like to throw to when they do throw the ball. He's got a tougher matchup against JMU, but he's averaged the last couple weeks 7 targets, 10 targets. So he's another one that gets a lot of targets.
Yeah, but in this order, I'd probably go Fannin, from Bowling Green, Boardingham from Florida, McLaughlin from Arizona, of guys that might be available in your league. I like those. And yeah, I was fortunate to trade for Nesbitt when I lost Bowers. That's been the best part of that trade this year, because he's been killing it. He's on fire, 10 plus fantasy points every week the last 3 weeks, and he's our third start of the week at tight end this week. And I'll go ahead and throw that up on the screen, and we can go through rankings if that's good with you, Matt. Why not?
B-Mac, you know what? Why don't we go through some rankings really quick?
So, yeah, we've got tight ends here, but we don't normally even go through tight ends. That was just a favor with the live question, though. So at quarterback, we've got Knicks, guaranteed best start of the week this week against USC. They are terrible. Oregon's supposed to score 45. They're going to be able to score as many as they want. Jaden Daniels, if he plays, it kind of sucks with him not practicing, but he's a veteran. He doesn't really need that. He'll just need to get some rhythm going before the game starts, a couple, days before. I think that'll be fine for Jaden Daniels to come in and do great against Florida at home. They're projected to score 38.5. I'm sure they'll score all of those, if not more, and give up some points. Florida's projected to score 25. So I like that. Salter, let's go, boy. Against Josh Reed, let's go. Liberty. They're playing on a Saturday for the first time in a while. They've been on the Tuesday train. So
the undefeated, cool. Newly ranked Liberty, by the way.
Yeah. There you go. Byron Brown is a great start at number 6. Penix against Utah, even though they're a really great defense, they're projected to score 31. And so I love Penix still this week, even though he had a disappointing game for Matt, scoring 28. But anything stand out here to you? Any questions?
Man,
I love seeing JMU's quarterback at 5. I got a question for you guys that's not really fantasy, but it's James Madison. Do you think that they will win their appeal, or do you think their appeal is not going to be won? What's going on with James Madison? They are undefeated. They probably will stay undefeated, but because they are an FCS to FBS transfer team, they are bowl ineligible for 2 years. You could legitimately see a team win their conference, be ranked in the top 15 in the country, and not be allowed to go to a bowl game. They are petitioning the NCAA to loosen up their regulations, allow them to go to a bowl. What do you guys think? Will we see them in a bowl this year or not?
We're here in 2023. Obviously, trust in government is at an all-time high, and so is with the NCAA. I expect they'll do the right thing, and James Madison will be eligible to play.
Yeah, and here's the deal. Man, they have loosened up on everything else. Why stick to your guns on this when you have a team that deserves to go to a bowl game? I mean, I don't understand. It doesn't make sense.
They need to hire Tez Walker's legal team, and they'll get themselves in a bowl. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, BMAC. Why don't we move on to running backs? BMAC. Let's see what we got on these running back rankings.
Yeah, so we've got some tough ones here. Genty, I don't know what's the word on him right now.
I feel like he's going to be back this week. I feel like he was close last week, but I feel like there's a good chance to see him back on the field this week.
Yeah, Kyrie Robinson's been on a tear. He's playing against Fresno State. They're decent against the run, but he's been great, 24 and 30 in his last 2 outings. Let's give you a question here. So DJ Giddens as the Kansas State starter was fantastic when Trayshawn Ward was hurt. Had a huge game, then 32, 25, 6 last week. Do you have any pause? He was playing Texas. Do you have any pause with him at home against Baylor, or would you start someone like like a Blake Watson or even a Penny Boone against Eastern Michigan. Of those three, who would you start?
I mean, I've really liked what Boone has done so far this year, and I would probably take Boone of the three because, I mean, you look at Giddens, yes, had some great games, but there's always that potential for Ward to come in and get playing time. I mean, Boone is going to be the guy.
And they have two running quarterbacks that are going in and out too.
Yeah, I think I'd be more apt to take your number 24, Malik Sherrod, Fresno State versus San Jose State, versus than take Giddens at that point.
Yeah, they had a takeover at running back throughout the year. I like what Blake Watson's been doing. I'd probably roll with him. I tried so hard to get him from Uncle Joe. I tried so many hours and days and whatnot put into a very simple trade, and then he's like, "Oh, just throw in Sam Laporta." But
yeah,
the best season for a rookie tight end ever. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yep.
Anyways, yeah. Amarian Hampton. How about him? He's been consistently excellent all year long. He's got a tough matchup against Duke, but I love Hampton as a starter. Like you, Matt, have really good running backs. I'd take your running backs, your whole room for my whole room.
If you throw in Sam Laporta, I'd think about it. Just kidding. No, I like my running back room as well. I'm really happy with where they're at. Hampton was a guy I picked up way early last season, and as soon as I picked him up, they stuck him on the back of the bench behind like 4 other guys. I was very disappointed, but I even had consideration in the offseason about I had to go research, do I even keep him? But they were like, no, he is definitely part of the 1A, 1B running back room, and I'm glad. I would have been very despondent if I would have let him go. I will say this. I let Puka Nacua go as a offseason cut a couple years ago, and I'm regretting that decision.
Oh, man.
I don't regret that decision at all.
Horrible.
Yeah, Quentin Cooley is another one that's been on a tear for Liberty lately. He's 29, 13, 31. Hopefully Salter gets them all this week, selfishly, obviously. But Ollie Gordon, obviously, Genty, Boise State is supposed to crush New Mexico. So that's why, like, Dalmas is our kicker start of the week. But Genty's up there. You can't start anyone else over Gordon, obviously. If you've got both of those two, you're rolling with them if Genty's healthy. But more news that'll be posted up in the Discord when we do. I'll slide down to receiver here. We've got Neighbors, number 1. Troy Franklin, number 2. Marvin Harrison, number 3. You can't go wrong. Those are easily the 3 best starts. And then you go down to Adunze, even though he's at 5, playing against Utah, the number 34 ranked pass defense. But, Washington's going to be able to get their possessions and should be somewhat of a close game. But I think Adunze is an easy start every week this week, unless you have those 4 people above him, which is unlikely. So you got Royals at 4, Lacey at 6, Wester. I think he's wide receiver 2 to Neighbors by only 0.3 points. And what a tear he's been on, Wester, going for 33 and then 56 the last 2 weeks. But all right, so I'll give you one, Doug. Let's give you here's one for you, Matt.
All right.
How dare you cut Puka? Getting called out there. I love
Matt. I love the fact that you cut Puka because he's.
I cut Puka when he was in college. I didn't cut him in the pros. I cut him when he was in college, and now I see him in the pros. I'm like,
I picked him up when he was in college, and it's fine. I like it.
Just disgusting.
So one guy that was like trending to wide receiver 1 territory for a while, Torrey Horton. He's been, slow. He's been battling an injury. He's been playing through it, and seems like he's getting healthier now. They're not supposed to score a ton. They're supposed to score 25 this week against San Diego State. Colorado State's at home. He's gone for 6, 7, and 11 the last 3 games. Would you take him over a Luther Burden against Tennessee or Des Walker? If you have those 3 there, who are you going to start if you had to pick one? Tez, Burden, or Horton?
I mean, Burden
against Tennessee
is going to be my start. Yeah. I mean, they have the 112th ranked defense against the pass. Tennessee does.
Oh, no, that's San Diego State.
Or I'm sorry. I mean,
they're all about to.
Burden's still going to get his
score
catches,
the same.
bro. Burden is still going to get his. Like, I don't think he's a guy that you ever sit.
Yeah.
He does have that questionable to play, but I mean, yeah, I don't know. The last 5 weeks, I feel like the dude's got like 57 targets. Like, I don't know if I would. I don't know if I'd sit him ever.
Yeah, he had a good start against Georgia and then disappeared. But yeah, we'll see how that one goes. And Doug just ghosted on accident, probably.
Uh-oh.
I'm back.
Uh-oh.
All right. Well, if you guys have questions or whatever, hit us up in the Discord. YouTube comments are always welcome. Likes and subscriptions to YouTube are free, obviously. That helps us a ton with you guys engaging with us there. And big plans for 2024, new things, new content. I'm excited to do it all alongside you guys. So let's go with where are we going next, Matt?
We got 2 segments left. We got the DFS host battle, and then we got the brisket locks. So let's go on down to the DFS host battle. We can give you guys who is in our lineups for the week, and then from there we'll get our brisket locks for the week.
All right.
So because BMAC decided last week that he did not prioritize doing this podcast, he decided he had to go out of town for his actual business and go party with his boys from Searchalytics for a whole week in Vegas. We did not do a DFS host battle last week, but the previous week, Doug decided he was going to win the DFS host battle again. Correct me if I'm wrong. Doug is currently in first place, a place very unfamiliar to him. Whoa. 4 times for Doug. Whoa. 3 times for me, 2 times for BMAC. BMAC, what are you going to do to try and get out of that bottom slot? Who is your lineup in the DFS host battle this week that is going to get you out of last place?
Oh, I will get out of last place. I'll get in first place. Let's just go win 3 in a row. Why not? All right. My quarterback this week, this is just, you guys better put up 200 points. Like, this lineup is looking good. I got Michael Pratt, 8,200. Easy start. Let's see over here in our CFB stats. Pratt is quarterback. Where you go, Pratt? Number 10. They're supposed to score 38 points. Tulsa is 130th against the pass. Tulane's at home. Pratt, easy start at quarterback at 8,200. Ollie Gordon, boom, 7,900. He is killing it. They're playing at UCF, so the weather will be nice. Weather is a factor now, so you've got to pay attention to those games up north. Following where the snow is going to happen or crazy wind or whatever. He's playing in Florida. Not that Oklahoma would be a problem right now, but I've got Jalen Wright, another road team running back, $5,400. Tennessee is at Missouri. And then I needed to save some money. Keith Brown. Let's get a stack for Pratt to Brown this week. He's averaging 7.8 fantasy points. I already told you all of the reasons why statistically Tulane is a great play at home against Tulsa. And then I went with Cowing, 6,700. at Arizona, at Colorado. And then Jimmy Horn on the flip side, he gets a lot of the short targets, a lot of the drag routes, crossing routes and bubble screens in that Colorado offense. So I don't expect him to do little, even if Arizona is able to kind of shut him down a little bit. They won't totally shut down Colorado. He's at 6,000. And then staying in that game, Tet McMillan, 6,300 is my flex. And my super flex is Fafita, Arizona's quarterback against Colorado, 6,000.
Man.
I'd say I've had a rough time finding a way to get a second quarterback into my super flex, just because it's hard for me to find ways to cut the money otherwise to get to where I can get a high price quarterback. I'll go next, then we'll save the current reigning champ for last. So I got Milroe. Milroe's at 9,000. My quarterback, all those rushing touchdowns last week were just too tasty for me to not want to see if he could have a return performance this week. Obviously, Ollie Gordon, highly undervalued, 7,900 for what he's been doing. I still think even though 7,900 is one of the top amounts that's out there, I think that's a shockingly low number for a guy of his caliber.
Yeah.
I got Anthony Watkins from Tulsa at 5,600 at my other running back position. Last week, he had 24 carries for 146 yards and a touchdown. So I like guys that are going to get a lot of touches. I took Travis Hunter from Colorado at 6,400. I just think he's on the field too much. He can get stats wherever, whether it's running back, maybe getting a pick six. He's just on the field too much. I think he has too much of a chance to put up some stats for you. Guy I mentioned earlier, I wanted to save a little bit of money. This Colston Loveland, the tight end from Michigan, he's only 4,900. That's where I saved the money, getting a guy that gets a lot of targets per game. Another guy I had to save some money on was Singleton from Georgia Tech. He was at 4,700. Then I got Lincoln Victor from Washington State. Last week he had 12 receptions, low yardage number, but still, when you're getting 12 receptions, how many targets is a guy like that getting in a game? I feel like he has a chance to have another big week. And then I'll give you a preview of my brisket lock for this week. But I've got something special at the brisket lock this week. But a preview of my partial brisket lock is Phil Maffa from Clemson. Phil Maffa from Clemson is who has been in the lineup, subbing in for Will Shipley, and he has absolutely blown up while in relief of Will Shipley. I feel like he has a chance to have another great week. He had 36 carries last week for 186 yards and 2 touchdowns. I think he's still going to be on the field. I'll talk a little bit more about him when we get to my partial brisket in a little bit, but that's my lineup. DraftKings says it's about 143 point fantasy points per game average. I'm not sure where yours is, BMAC, but that's where I'm at.
I love it.
Doug, what about you?
So, listening to Brian's lineup, little, we got some similar there, buddy. My starting quarterback is Fafita for Arizona. Even though Delora is back, they're staying with the hot hand at Arizona, and Fafita is going to play, and he looks good. Only $6,000 for a starting quarterback who's been looking as good as he does. I'm down. Then I have Mekhi Hughes, running back for Tulane against Tulsa at 58. Then I went with Cody Schrader, running back from Missouri against against Tennessee.
Man, he's been watching too much children's television there.
So yeah, we got Schrader from Missouri against Tennessee. Then I went with UCF's receiver, Javon Baker, against OK State, because they're just okay on defense. And then I went with Cowing at receiver against Colorado, because anytime somebody plays against Colorado, I'm usually going to take them on offense. And then I went with, we got to do it, Squirrel White, Tennessee receiver. I don't know if we have the sound, but I had to do it because he did have only 2 targets last week, but 94 yards. And before that, I think it was like 8 targets and then 10 targets and stuff. So he's kind of coming into his own a little bit. And then at flex, I've got Daniel Jackson, Minnesota receiver. That offense is starting to look a lot better in Minnesota. And then my super flex is Michael Pratt. So
nice.
We've got the same quarterbacks, just some different in-between players. But it could be our difference could be just like, our stupid fantasy week where just one guy is going to determine. I do like how you went with both Arizona receivers. I was tempted, super tempted to do the same thing, but something told me that you were going to try to copy me, so I had to go a little different.
Well, we'll see how it works out. You guys better score 200 this week. I'm putting a bunch of money on this line. I'm going all in.
You better score 205.
You're not just going $5. You're going $5.56.
Boom.
All right. So that's our brisket lot. I mean, that's our DFS battle. And BMAC, you do normally put a post up later on that shows those lineups for people if they want to pick those lineups apart or use them as a basis for their own lineups. That brings us to the final segment of the week is the brisket lock. For you guys that are brand new to this, BMAC is the purveyor of the brisket. He is the baker of the brisket. He is the cooker of the brisket. He is known for everything brisket. So
I'm gonna do
you gotta risk it for the brisket
whenever you're ready.
Yeah,
risk it for
heck
the brisket.
yeah, man. You gotta risk it for the brisket.
It's time.
So what these guys are, these are guys that are lower in our rankings or are not even in our rankings.
I hit that too early, my bad, man.
That's all good. Hey, that's all good. These are guys that are low in our rankings or guys that we think have a chance to exceed expectations, that if you have a potential to get them in your lineup at their proper position, we're not saying this is an RB1 or a wide receiver 1. It might be somebody that sneaks in at your flex or a wide receiver 3. So Doug, who is your brisket lock this week and why?
So my brisket lock is somebody I really wish I would have drafted. At this point.
Me too.
But we actually have Pearsall in the rankings, which could potentially be a mistake on our end, because I think Wilson has been outperforming him with receptions and touchdowns. He has been averaging 8 receptions a game in the last 5 games and 4 touchdowns, and he plays the cruddy LSU secondary.
But BMAC, did you hear Doug just call you out and say he thinks there's a mistake in the rankings? Doug just called you out.
Wilson could both.
They're both.
They could both have a really good week, kind of like the Arizona receivers against Colorado. So, but yeah, I'm going to go with Wilson, and the reason I'm going with Wilson over Pearsall is because Wilson's not in our rankings at all. That's the only reason I picked him. So,
I like it. For me, I'm going with RB 46 in the rankings. Auburn is traveling to Arkansas, and I'm rolling with Jarquez Hunter, who's been pretty hot lately. So 30, 18, 37 the last 3 weeks, and he's finally picking up steam in that new offense, and I like him to keep it rolling on the road this week at Arkansas.
All right, so this week, for the first time ever, I'm going to put on a double brisket lock alert because I did not want to put just one guy out there. I already talked about Phil Maffa. I don't think he's going to have the kind of numbers that he had last week, but Phil Maffa is not even in the top 50 on our rankings. I think he's definitely worth a consideration at an RB2 or a flex just because of the fact of what he's put up the last few weeks. You're talking about Shipley coming off of a concussion, and you've got a running back that was a workhorse like that. I think they can ease Shipley back in, knowing that Maffa can take the load if need be. The other guy is one that we haven't really talked about on the show much, if at all. That's Jamal Pritchett, who is the wide receiver 2 at South Alabama. So you think Colin Lacey, you're like, man, Colin Lacey gets tons of targets every week, double-digit targets, gets triple-digit yards every single week. Jamal Pritchett is right behind him. Jamal Pritchett 2 weeks ago against ULL 17 targets, 11 receptions, 168 yards, 2 touchdowns. Last week, I had to go back and look to see if Pritchett was even playing because he didn't even have a target for the first 3 quarters. In the last quarter of the game, he had 7 targets, 6 receptions, 59 yards. You're talking about a high-powered offense. He gets tons and tons of looks. Obviously, you're not going to start him over Lacey, but if you need somebody that's a deep sleeper, Jamal Pritchett could be somebody you might want to take a look at.
100%, man. I like those picks.
Yep.
We'll see how they go. We should have side bets on those too. Anyways, whatever. We'll figure that one out. So, Matt.
He's
back. Yeah. And hello again, Matt.
Okay, yep.
So.
All right, so we come to the end of this week's show. We are in the college fantasy playoffs. For those of you that are out there in the playoffs, we hope you guys have a good performance, unless your name is Mike Dillingham or Josh Speed Reed, and then you guys can hit the bricks. In the following shows, I'm sure we're going to be talking about who were guys that were drafted high that were super disappointments, guys that were drafted low or free agents that have really exceeded those. What do you think, B-Mike? What other things are we going to talk about in the following weeks other than the typical news and notes and giving people some advice as they move further into their playoffs?
Yeah, good question. It's time to start the train for 2024 and start looking at some early rankings for that stuff. You know, it's definitely too early with, you know, players proclaiming themselves to the draft or not. We got portal season coming up very soon. The end of recruiting is massive to kind of see where these top guys go. And all of that is going to happen, you know, between what's going to seem super fast between now, which we got Thanksgiving, then Christmas, then the New Year, and then portal season is over. The second signing day happens early February. And then we'll be able to push out the new rankings. So there's a lot of work that we have to do between now and then start working on 2024 depth charts and all that stuff. So it's fun, but a lot. And it's time to start that stuff.
What about you, Doug? You got any final words? I got one last thing once you're done that I want to make sure that we do. But what do you got? Anything else you want to say, Doug, heading in? What are you going to be doing this weekend instead of playing in the fantasy playoffs?
Man, I don't know. I'll probably go watch my nephews play some soccer. All I'm thinking about currently is they're getting ready to do a chili cook-off here at Searchalytics, or at the workspace that we're in. And there's like a bunch of people competing, and it's all I smell, and I can't wait to taste some. So that's all I'm currently thinking about right now, and it's starting to drive me nuts.
All right, so real quick before we get out of here, I just want to literally by name shout out every single person that took part in the CFB Dynasty Open League this year. Really happy with the fact that we had 24 teams in the league, regardless of where you were at in the final standings. I know that just about every single person there we had some kind of fun interaction with. So you know, Chris, I know we pick on you a lot, but I'm glad that you were in the league and giving it a shot. You still got 3 wins, so that means there's 3 people out there that are like, what do I need to do to go beat Carissa next year? But Carissa, Rat State, CB Connolly, Clee Shreen, CyberCon, Jared Price, Jay Morris on Discord, Steelers Pride, Rebel Nut, Mock Draft University, Funky Chickens, X-Wing Squadron, Out of Eligibility, Brandwood 1983, All I Do Is Win, 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 M. Brooks 2434, J.H. Petkoff, Scared Money Don't Make Money, Uncle Joe, Saucy Dossie, and Oaktown 510. We appreciate each and every one of you guys joining the CFB Dynasty Open League this year. We hope to see every one of you guys back next year for a bigger and better CFB Dynasty Open League experience.
Awesome.
Appreciate it, guys. Y'all have a great weekend. We'll see you on the Saturday show. We'll talk to you on the Discord, start, sit, all that stuff, and we'll have fun winning or losing together, hopefully winning. But yeah, that's all I've got.
Peace out, fam.
See you guys. Do what this guy says if you want to. That'd be helpful.
Thank you for listening to the CFB Dynasty podcast. Help us out by subscribing on YouTube and reviewing us on your podcast network.
We're done. We're done.